Let's talk about some of the best practices with building a customer profile. Now, once you've identified in your customer profile the customer jobs, the pains related to those jobs, and the gains related to those jobs, you then want to be able to rank them to understand the importance as they relate to one another. Now, although individual customer preferences vary, you need to get a sense of customer priority, and that's what ranking helps you do. Now, in order to do this, you want to make sure as you're interviewing your customers and asking questions around these different pieces of the customer profile, that you understand where they fall in terms of extremeness, where they feel they're more essential or less essential, or where they fall in terms of importance. Now, common mistakes that a lot of people make, including myself, when it comes to building a customer profile, is that we mix several different customer segments in one profile. That's not the best practice. You should make a customer profile for each of your customer segments so that you can actually see the differences in your customer. You also don't want to mix jobs and outcomes. A job is something that a customer wants to do, and an outcome is the result of that. And that result might be a pain or a gain. Now, focusing on functional jobs only and forgetting social and emotional jobs is another thing that people do often. But sometimes it's those social and emotional jobs that are the true motivating factor. Now, you also want to make sure that you're listing out jobs, gains, and pains as it relates to your customer, not as it relates to you and your perceptions and what your business is trying to do. Think of the customer profile as an objective snapshot of what your customer is doing. So if I were to make a customer profile about customers of Amazon, I'm not going to talk about buying books or whatever I think Amazon does as a business. I'm going to talk very specifically about the customer that I've interviewed, the jobs they do in their life, their pains, and their gains. And then I'll work backwards to what can Amazon do to service this customer as they exist today. Now, there's tons of information when you interview someone, but oftentimes when we create these profiles, they kind of look very light and they don't have a lot of detail. You should be focusing on quantity in terms of quality instead of quality. You want to make sure that you have a lot of information to work from when you build your profile. And then lastly, you don't want to be vague because all of this detail becomes useful when you start to distill it into a value proposition. Now, when you're making a value proposition canvas, which includes both a customer profile and a value map, you have to know that there's a difference between jobs and gains. Jobs are the tasks, and gains are the concrete outcomes. Sometimes social or emotional jobs are even more important than the visible functional jobs, so don't forget to put special emphasis on making sure those are included. Now, when you map your customer, you also want to make sure that you forget what you're offering. So for example, a business publisher shouldn't map jobs, pains, and gains that merely relate to books, because a reader has the choice between business books, consultants, YouTube videos, or even completing an MBA. So you want to go beyond the jobs, pains, and gains you intend to achieve with your product and service and really look broadly at your customer. Now, a good customer profile is full of options, as we've discussed, so make gains and pains tangible and concrete and have a lot to work from. So rather than just writing salary increase as a gain, you want to specify how much of an increase a customer is seeking. Or rather than writing that something takes too long and that's a pain, indicate how long is actually too long.